Hello, I presume you will be able to hear this. I'm here in the little box room of a certain house somewhere, where I was surprised to find that some of my recording equipment was now located. Placed here so that I, despite my current predicament, can carry on my profession. Yes, specialist vectors, that was the line back at the studio. And here I am, more special than any of them. I believe I am to impress you with my story. That's what they want you to hear, so you'll praise them, and perhaps you'll spare a thought for me too. What I suppose I must now tell you is a story that is hard to believe. I'm sure the ISD has plenty of surveillance data to corroborate my tale, so I shall leave that to the producers, if they live. Here then is a special entry in our beloved Dead Files. Another dead who is, I can assure you, still alive, by one definition of that word or another. Dead 25, Vector 8, me. I shan't be so crass as to redact my own name. It's Maxwell Bravo, voiceover extraordinaire, voice of hope in a time of utter darkness. Darkness that I embrace, as you should, for the zombies are attracted to the unusual artificial light their choice prey tend to keep close. See, I'm doling out the life-saving lessons even now, aren't I? A professional, a vector, and now a professional vector. I would start when I first realized I was going to be volunteering to become a vector, but actually this tale goes back further than that. It started long ago with a delicious glass of scotch. No, I'm not blaming the drink for all this. I'm blaming Redacted. Yes, and given that you know who is publishing this program, you can read between my neat little lines all you like. A glass of scotch. An innocent enough thing, given the times we live in. A powerful drink. Powerful enough to conceal the taste of all manner of unusual contaminants that someone might slip in there as some sort of wild, secret experiment. The same kind of experiment that brought up the Vector program. The very same. It takes a long time to prepare the body for becoming a Vector, and this process is best done in secret. It is not unpleasant, far from it. It makes you feel good. It's energizing. It's a gentle high every day. I would recommend it, but for one subtlety that was so recently explained to me, that once your mini-transformation is done, you are as dependent on the bacteria as the zombies. All this aeroplankton growing in your lungs, you are its host, and if you don't keep the fuel coming in to keep growing it, you die. That means you need to get wild bacteria into you to stay alive, taking care to avoid the refactored kind produced by zombies, because that will decidedly not let you stay alive. A balancing act that pales in comparison to the balance of all civilization upon my shoulders. And between all these sterling motivational factors, one can see how eager the Vectors were to perform their duties. Kidnapping their families was icing on the cake, yet my cake is oh so plain, being that they died already. Is that why they kept me for last? That was my theory at first. But after what happened over the last week or so, I know that everything all these people have been through was but a prelude to what the ISD intends for me. This, they tell me firmly, is how the world will really be saved. The world. What do they mean by that? I dare say humanity will not be part of this new world, if one wishes to get into technicalities. You will all, one day, be something like me. More dependent on a supply of these microscopic beings even than the Vectors, but in return you will have this power. I will tell you what happened, and you will simply have to believe me. I can't tell you the reason behind any of these gruesome feats I now proudly boast of. I only insist that they are something you can believe in. That, I think, is why they gave me this microphone, so I will do my part. Here's what you can look forward to if this mad science comes to fruition. After they blacked me out in the studio, the next thing I knew, I was at the insertion point for Vector 5. It was a house on the opposite side of the city from the only place I knew to be marginally safe, or at least marginally well supplied. I laughed at first because I had long thought of what I would do were I required to put into action the many lessons I had been attempting to impart to our nation. With both lessons and nations alike things of the past, here I was taking the final exam, and the questions were ones I'd seen before. My time to shine, eh? I had a bat, about half a day's food, and a map, although I knew the way already. I had never been face to face with a zombie, and it affected me more than I expected. This adverse reaction, this fear, was drowned out by the rush of endless terror driving at me from all angles. They were everywhere. It was worse than the pictures I'd seen, and it's even worse now than it was then. That's good, that's the point, but it didn't make for a welcoming arrival. I literally followed Victor 5's footsteps by walking down the highway. I thought I saw the logic in it, avoids drawing attention like a car, and avoids getting lost since the route is so simple. So simple that even a zombie could follow it. And there's the problem. Slipping past the horde, now channeling along the highway, was beyond my abilities. Survival was simply impossible. Impossible, you ask? Yes, impossible. The reason I speak to you now is because something even more impossible trumped the challenge. It is hard to recall the details. They are very painful, in all senses. I was caught, hands around my arms and shoulders, and I knew immediately that something I had seen and described happening to so many people was about to happen to me. I failed to see the justice in it anymore, you know? They ripped, and I have no wish to describe it. I remember thinking that I would like things to be over quickly, and look how that turned out. What precisely happened I can't tell you. I think IDS-COM will have more information than me. I woke up from what felt like a sleep. I was confused but rested. It didn't feel like my death was a death. No, I felt like it must still be happening, and it was beside myself with fear. I was in a house that, as I would later discover, was on the edge of the city, some ways back down the highway. I had walked there as a zombie. My clothes were torn to pieces, yet the body below looked healthy, good as new, and probably better than that still. I had been cured of zombification. You heard that right. Good as new. That's what they want me to say. They want me to tell you that I am cause for hope. People can be brought back, somehow. Let us ignore, then, what that means for all the zombies we've bashed, burned, and buried up to now. We thought they were all monsters, and I do not exclude myself from that perhaps patronizing we. I was a monster like you, then I was a monster like them. What am I now? Neither. I am a vector. I am bloody fine. Bloody fine. Whatever they did to me, it works. Bravo from Bravo. So, I remember collecting up some clothes from this house and eventually getting my bearings. I felt things a human would feel, and did things a human would do, sickness being foremost among such influences. I realized I'd been a monster for no more than 2 hours, during which time my monster form had the good sense to get somewhere safe and alone. Was I really fully out of control? If I was still piloting my body, I have mercifully forgotten completely what it was like. Again, I shall not dare speculate about whether consciousness remains somewhere in all beasts. Let's hope it's only the case for those whose blood courses with the special preparations of our erstwhile scientific lifeliners. One thing I can inform you with certainty is that to be deprived of those memories was a stroke of fortune that was not to be repeated in the journey that lay ahead of me. It was late afternoon. I was still in possession of my bag, containing half a litre of water, a sharing-size pack of tortilla chips, and the barely contained extent of a regulation baseball bat. With this latter item I defended myself as I began a hike across the parklands and sports grounds on the edge of the city. I harboured no intention to flee then, because I believed ISD-COM would extract me once they realised what had happened. Yes, the sort of naive fantasy I have chastised many a dead for indulging in. So I marched west, planning to sneak through the city itself in order to avoid the concentrations of zombies along the highway. The city was the easier route indeed, but easier than impossible doesn't mean much. They were everywhere. I got used to the feel of the bat and the cracks of bone. From the very first blow I knew I was stronger than I had ever been. Death hadn't left a mark on me. This is excellent news for someone somewhere. It's all working great. I battled for a few hours, hiding in houses now and then to catch my breath, until that breath got me caught by the foe. I was hardly halfway by the time it was dark, but I looted a hefty flashlight so I could keep travelling. What a dumb idea. I ran out into the streets, this light keeping me from running into walls, I guess, but hardly helping me navigate. All I needed to do was go west, towards where the sun had fallen. Easy, I thought. On the plus side, the streets were grids, so if I could get the right direction down, I could follow it all the way home. On the negative side, there were zombies swarming all over me, drawn to me very, very much like moths to a flame. I was running, lunging through gaps in the tumbling, hissing gaggle of hunger and pain growing around me, every face a fresh cell in the city's great post-human tumor. I was screaming, but not even I could hear it. I ran for an hour, probably in circles half the time, killing surprisingly many of my pursuers and gaining nothing for it. Amid it all, with grace and dignity above my station, the flashlight gently concluded its work and fell to sleep. It was 2 a.m. It was raining. It was completely dark, concealing me from danger and safety in equal measure. Was this better? Was this worse? These two questions that haunt my very existence could well be asked of me in that embarrassing moment, when indeed I did rightly catch myself dead acting like a dead. I felt my way forwards, waiting for my eyes to adjust to the night, as if the pouring rain and long-dead streetlights left any room for such mercy. No. I managed to get inside a house somewhere and started looking for a new light, new batteries, a lighter, a match. What I found is even harder to describe than the events I have muttered over already. When the zombies came, as they do, I resigned myself to death, yet death would not come. They tore at me and bit me and dragged me, and sometimes they would stop for a while as if they considered their work done, and I would scream or moan in a too human way and draw them back to resume the feast. They shredded me beyond cartoonish violence. I was hardly held together. I was a brain attached to some frayed roots that were once a body. Yes, despite the reputation, zombies hunger not for brains. The bacteria needs those. As for the body, that is apparently utterly replaceable. And replaced it was. As I speak to you, it is like I am describing something that happened to another, as I am so used to. My body is here, my hand on the microphone, my feet shaking too loudly against the wooden floor. I remember moments of the journey from there to here. I was carried by the zombies like a prize. They didn't know whether to keep eating. But after I failed to turn, they saw fit to keep me as a sort of captive instead, brought with them as they walked around for days and days, otherwise idle. They would look at me, right in the eyes, staring from one trapped soul into another. As they say, it all blurred together. I shall tell you the next solid memory. I woke up, again, like I had been asleep for a long time. My body was screaming with pain all over, but the wounds were healed, skin reattached, muscle regrown, as if it had been years and years. It was only a week. I was sitting in a chair in a lecture theatre, alone. The door was closed. Orange dawn light shone in the windows. It was quiet, but something about the pain I was in seemed to make a noise from within. What was first stupor and lethargy gave way to awareness and energy. I rose from the chair, my legs crackling with what I hesitate to call pain, rather it was sensation. I was back. Louisville State University was less than a mile from the Vector HQ. I felt strong enough to walk 10 times as far. You can't understand that feeling, to go from being worse than dead to better than alive. It's the bacteria. That's all I can say. It's tricking me, I say to myself, but what's the trick? All the things the scientists said they were trying to get it to do, it is doing. And thus I go from describing how I was taken to some sort of quasi-hell, to how I walked out of the university building, easily pushing off the student body, and walked on over to the Ohio. My rendezvous at HQ followed shortly. I took up the weapons my predecessors had stored, and drove the zombies off with outrageous ease. I was stronger than I had ever been before my previous death, and the one before that. Noticing a pattern? Killing the zombies was easy, and while I won't go so far as to say it's the least of my troubles, I am rather more concerned with getting food poisoning or falling into the river and getting mired in the mud below, where I might spend eternity as an immortal being. Am I immortal? If anyone listening knows the answer, do get in touch. All this was a week ago now. Since then, I've been hard at work. I've been going over all the notes the carpenters left behind, and sizing up the job of actually making this mythical safe haven where I might do my vectoring duties in peace and quiet. The carrots are growing nicely, far quicker than even an amateur gardener like me can believe, but now I think we hardly need look far for the reason for it. Killing the zombies is easy enough, as I said. This morning I was out in the local neighborhood smashing furniture to bring bits of wood back. Then I saw a light flashing on this radio and realized it was actually picking up some sort of pulsing signal. I tuned right into it, and I can only assume that broadcasting back on it is what all this stuff here is for. No one said anything to me. Maybe they will now. There we go. That's my story. Now I'm going to do my utmost not to let you all down. I don't know what I am. I don't know what's going to happen to me, but I'm willing to leave all those questions aside and take a narrow focus on my duty, if there's even a sliver of a chance that all this ends with you, my beloved listeners, pulling this world out of its dive. There is more to learn. We have to hold on, and I'm going to make it as easy as I can for you. The Vector program is back in force, and long may it and I live. One last thing. If you can avoid it, don't attack the zombies. I think there's something in there. And this voice you're hearing right now is proof that it can be brought back. Leave the killing to me. On my head be it, for my head is bloody bulletproof. I hope not, actually. Anyway, that's it. Don't be like me. Don't be caught dead acting like a dead. And don't give up on us yet. Humanity, or something like it, will master this new world. It's the 6th of October 2008, and this is Maxwell Bravo, Vector 8, hero of the world if you will, signing off. I bet no one even heard any of that. At least I get to write my own scripts now. Let's see about getting some dinner on then. Peanuts and beef jerky was it tonight? Everything the body needs. Viva the Vector!